Hi guys, welcome to another video. So today I wanted to talk about my new road bike. So this is my new giant TCR Advance Pro Zero Disc. So I've had it about 3 or 4 months at this point, and I've done about 400 miles on it, and it's kind of gone away for winter now. I used it in September, and then towards the end of September I had a week off cycling, and then since then it's just not really been good enough weather to use my kind of best bike, so I've been on my old Canyon. So talking of the Canyon, the reason I decided to upgrade now from my 6-year-old Canyon Endurace to a new bike was because there are enough new things in the market that this bike has to justify that upgrade. So to list a few, I've got the disc brakes, I've got the carbon deep wheels, which is something I've wanted for a while but never really wanted with rim brakes. It's got the Di2, it's got 12 speed. So yeah, I kind of feel like those 4 things are enough to justify getting a new bike, and you know, who doesn't want a new bike? So to start off, let's just talk about the colour first of all. I think it looks absolutely stunning. It's got the orange fade to black, which I know fades have been done to death in the bike industry over the last few years, but I really think this one is absolutely spot on. It's a matte black at the back and it's a gloss, I think it's called bronze, but it's orange really, towards the front. And yeah, I think it looks absolutely gorgeous. I'm really happy with the look of the bike, and even though I've not been on that many rides on it, still got loads of compliments as to the look of the bike while I've been sort of riding around and meeting people out and about. So yeah, I think it just looks stunning. So I wanted to special mention first of all to that. So yeah, moving through the bike, it's got the new Ultegra 12-speed Di2, which has got a few advantages over the old Di2. So the first is that it's 12 speed, and that gives you a little bit more versatility with the range of the cassette that you can fit. So this is running a semi-compact on the front, which I believe is the only option with the new Ultegra. So it's a 52-36, so that's a bit different to my old bike, which was running a 50-34, but I did want to step up to a 52. But then I was a little bit concerned that I am sacrificing that very sort of easiest climbing gear. So the cassette on this is a 11-30. So on my compact, that would be the equivalent of 11-28 on my previous bike. But I did run an 11-32 sometimes on my previous bike, which, you know, if you're on some big climbs, you're doing some big mountain rides, sometimes you do want that easy gear, especially at the end of the day. But the advantage of the new Ultegra system is that you can go 11-34 on the cassette on the rear. So I could fit that and I'd have the same sort of easy climbing gears as my old compact, but then with the advantage of having the bigger gears for when you want them, which you do. Because, you know, a lot of people say that the 50-11 of a compact is enough, but it's really not. You can get into a much more comfortable cadence when you've got a 52 on the front. So yeah, I'm really happy with this range of gears. At the moment, I've done a few hills around my local area, which is around Yorkshire, so some of them are quite tough, and I've not run out of gears on this yet. I'm sure it's going to happen at some point, and that's when I'll think about getting the 34 cassette. So the other advantages of the new Ultegra Groupset is wireless shifting, which does add the complication of having batteries in both the shifters as well as batteries in the derailleur for the Di2 system. However, the shifter batteries are going to last for a very long time, let's face it. And also it means that there's no cabling between the shifters and the gears, which is really nice. Just cuts down on stuff that can break and cuts down on cables that, you know, are going to maybe get in the way when you're packing a bike box, etc. And the other thing you get is you get satellite buttons on the top of the shifters, which you can assign to different uses. So mine are currently assigned to my Wahoo to flick between the pages, backward and forwards, so I don't have to take my hands off the handlebars if I want to change the screen on my head unit. Okay, so moving on to the frame, as you'd expect, it's a full carbon fibre frame. However, there are a few features which are a little bit more traditional than a lot of bikes these days. So for example, it doesn't have an integrated stem and handlebar, so a one-piece cockpit, and it also has external cabling for the 2 brake lines that it does have. And a lot of people have criticised it because of this. And yes, if you have those features, they are more aerodynamic and they also look nicer, there's no denying that. But from a practicality point of view, it's not something I really wanted. And the main reason that I didn't want those features is because I often travel, as you'll know if you watch the channel. I've got loads of videos about cycling abroad on the channel. And when I travel, I like to remove the handlebar from the stem, and then I rotate it, and it just tucks under the forks in my bike box, and it packs really compact. My bike box is quite compact, and it also means that I'm not taking the stem off the fork steerer, and that means I don't have to reset the headset, which is something I don't want to do. You know, it's a hassle. It's nice to be able to just leave it perfectly set up as it was set up before I left. So that was one of the things I wanted. I didn't want internal cabling. I was 100% sure of that. And I didn't want a bike where I'd have to reset the headset every time I reassemble it. It was quite funny because I actually mentioned this to one of the bike shops when I was looking around at different bikes, and his solution was to buy a new bike box / bike bag. And they had a bike bag there, which I'm sure you've seen them, they're quite popular, but you sort of put the bike in the bag, you leave the bars on, and the bag goes around the bike and sort of secures it. But that has a few disadvantages. One, it's a bag, which I'm not really a fan of when I've got a solid box with anti-crush pole in it. So it's a little bit better when it's going through all the baggage handling. And also it's super expensive. I think it was nearly £1,000, that bag. And I've already got a box that's not that old and perfectly adequate and fine. So yeah, I didn't really want to go down that road, but it's an option if you do have integrated handlebars, integrated cables, that sort of thing. Okay, so moving on now to the saddle. So the saddle is not the one that I usually use, but I am just using it at the moment just to see how I get on with it. I've done rides up to about 100 kilometers so far, so not huge rides, but not short rides either, and the saddle has been completely fine. I think for myself, one of the most important things is that it has a relief channel, which this saddle does have. However, one of the disadvantages is because it's not just a channel, it's a cutout. It means you can see the bolts on top of the seat post, and they are really ugly. So yeah, maybe I have to find some kind of rubber grommets or something just to cover those, make it look a little bit neater. Okay, so now I wanted to talk a little bit about the wheels. So these are the giant SLR1 wheels. They're in-house wheels, which you're always a little bit dubious of, but the reviews for these wheels are really good. They are really light as well, which is what you want from a wheel. So with regards to, they run straight and nice, which I'm happy with. They're light, which I'm happy with. The only other thing I'm a little bit nervous about is the longevity of them being in-house wheels. But Giant are a big brand. Let's hope that they do stay true for a long time and don't snap spokes, don't break, and that sort of thing. They are hookless, so you have to use hookless compatible tyres. Hookless has the advantage that it is cheaper for the manufacturers to make lightweight wheels. They'll give you other advantages, but that's the main one. And hopefully those savings are passed on to the consumer. And maybe they are. Maybe that's why you're getting a wheel of this spec on a bike of this price. So yeah, that's the wheels. With regards to what tyres you can fit, you've got to get hookless specific ones. Giant have rated all the tyres on their website, and they have a calculator so you can work out what pressure to run them at. Now, you're not supposed to run hookless above about 72 PSI. However, Giant seem to have done some testing beyond the norm for each different tyre, and they've then got recommended maximum pressures for you based on your wheel, on your tyre and your weight. You just use the calculator on their website, which I'll pop a link in the description below. So you can go over the 72 PSI if you want to. However, it's probably best just to try and stay not too heavy so you don't even have to consider going over that sort of pressure. The tyres that are fitted as standard are the Cadex ones, which is another Giant brand, and they're 25mm wide. They're okay tyres. I'm not a huge fan of them. They don't feel very stable is the only word I can use to describe compared to the GP5000s that I'm using, even though my GP5000s are 25mm as well. So I am going to swap to GP5000s. I'm probably going to go 28mm as well when I do that. Probably do that early next year before the season starts. I think one of the reasons they've decided to go 25mm as well with the bike as standard really is indicative of who they're aiming this bike at, and that is primarily people who want to race on the bike. Because if they were aiming it at people probably more like me, where they just want to go out and ride all day and use it as a bit of almost a Gran Fondo bike, / club ride bike, then they'd definitely be putting 28s on there. So I think it really does show that they're expecting this bike to go out and be raced by kind of like low-level racers, people who didn't quite want to step up to the SL, which is quite a commitment. Okay, so while we're talking about tyres and wheels, let's listen to the Freehub. So yeah, that's the Freehub. It is crazy. Okay, so what comes with the bike? You actually get a few accessories with it, which is pretty cool. It's something that I've not had with previous bikes really. And that is, you get the Garmin mount, and it's not just a Garmin mount, it comes with different inserts. So you can have a Garmin or a Wahoo, or there's another device as well. Is it a Be Cool or maybe something like that? There's different inserts that come with it anyway, so you can put whichever one you need into it. And then on the bottom, you also get the piece that you need to attach a GoPro style mount, to attach a GoPro or various lights, for example, which is pretty cool. I am told that because it's got angle adjustment, sometimes when it's fully loaded, it can start drooping a little bit. So I've not experienced that, but I've not actually put my GoPro on this bike yet, so maybe I will. And if I do, I'm thinking about making something just to keep it completely flat so that it doesn't droop when I'm cycling along. And the other accessory you get with the bike is a speed and cadence sensor. So this is one that uses magnets, I believe. So yeah, not ideal. I don't have it fitted. I don't think many people will fit it. When you're buying a bike at this price point, you're gonna probably have a power meter that you want to fit, and that's going to give you your cadence readings. And for speed, you're either going to use a proper speed sensor that uses accelerometers, or you're just going to use GPS if you're just riding outside. Okay, so I've weighed the bike and it comes in at just under 7.5 kilos. That includes the bottle cages, but no pedals. The bottle cages are only really lightweight plastic ones, so they're not going to be more than a few grams each. So that is pretty good for the type of bike it is. It's about the same as my Canyon Endurace is, with a lightweight set of climbing wheels on it. And when you consider this has got deep section wheels, disc brakes, electronic group set, it's pretty impressive really. Bikes have got heavier. It's really weird to say, but we went through a period in sort of 5 or 6 years ago where bikes were getting lighter and lighter and lighter. And then new technology came out, like disc brakes and electronic group sets, and then they started getting heavier because of this. I mean, if you look at the Trekker Monda, that bike's over 8 kilograms. It's just crazy. That's supposed to be a lightweight climbing bike. So yeah, I think 7.5 is a really good point for this bike. You could get a Ultimate CFR, but it'd be twice the price, and that would be lighter. You could also get the Cannondale. I can't remember what it's called, but it's got dubious color schemes. And the other one that's probably closest to this is the Specialized AFOS. That also has dubious paint schemes, which they've done to try and keep the bike light. It does come with some really high quality wheels, but it is a couple of grand more, and it'll shave off a few 100 grams from this bike. So the final thing I just wanted to mention, and I kind of touched on it earlier when I talked about the accessories, this bike doesn't come with a power meter. Previous generations of this bike did. However, in 2022, when they upgraded to the 12-speed Ultegra, they didn't fit a power meter because Giant didn't make a power meter compatible with his group set at that time. Now, I think and it's important to point out that they did charge less for this bike in 2022 than they did in 21 for the one with the power meter, but the old Ultegra, so that's pretty fair of them. It's worth pointing out that some countries seem to be getting a new model for 2023 that does include a power meter. However, in the UK, this is still the current model on the website. This model is not branded 2022 like previous models have been. And I am told by Giant that this is going to be the 2023 bike as well, or at least the bike in the first half of next year. Whether that's true or whether that's just marketing people not wanting to admit something new is coming out, I'm not sure. So I don't think it's an issue because most people, when they're spending this much on a bike, so just, to tell you the price, I paid £5,000 for this bike. It's currently £5,500 because the price has gone up since I bought it. And when you're spending around £5,000 on a bike, you're going to have a power meter to fit. You're probably going to be serious enough. And if not, you're going to be able to buy one pretty cheaply. You can get pedal power meters from around £300 now. And I think a crank for I think you can get a Stages crank or a 4i crank for this for about £300 or £400 as well. So that's only 10%, less than 10% of the cost of the bike. So it's no hardship not to come with a power meter. It's not like the olden days when they were super expensive. So yeah, as I said, I've only done a few 100 miles on this bike, so I can't really give a proper opinion of what it's like to ride. I've really enjoyed riding it when I have been out on it, and it has definitely been faster. If you check out my Strava, you'll be able to point out which rides I've done on this bike, not just because it says which bike I was using, but also because the average speeds are quicker. Maybe that's psychological, maybe it's not, I'm not sure. But it is a nice bike to ride so far. I'll be able to give more of an opinion next year when I'm using it in anger. So yeah, that's it for this video. So thank you for watching. If you like the video, give it a like. If you've got any questions you want me to answer, then please put them in the comments below and I'll answer them as best as I can, or try and find out the answer for you. And if you haven't already, please subscribe for more cycling videos. There's all sorts on the channel, including sort of reviews and cycling holiday stuff and cycling tips. And I will catch you in the next one. Cheers.